Harrison sat in the same uncomfortable chair he had occupied for 6 months. The Galactic Council chamber stretched above him like a cathedral built for giants. Hundreds of alien species filled the curved rows of seats, all looking down at the small human delegation on the chamber floor. High Arbiter clicked his mandibles together. The leader of the council stood 3 meters tall, his chitinous armor gleaming under the chamber lights. He had called this emergency session, the 47th since humanity joined the council. The human delegation will now hear the council's final terms, Al announced. His translator made his voice sound cold and mechanical. Earth will surrender 40% of all mineral resources as restitution for the incident. Lisa, sitting beside, went rigid. She was humanity's military liaison, a former fleet captain who had fought in the war Al called an incident. Put a hand on her arm, keeping her calm. 40%, repeated. He kept his voice level. Last month you demanded 30%, the month before that 20%. The council has reviewed the evidence again, Al said. Human forces destroyed the entire invasion fleet. This was a violation of proportional response protocols. They only attacked 3 human colonies. Humanity had no right to eliminate their military completely. Felt something cold settle in his chest. 3 colonies. They had killed 4 million people. Men, women, children. They had bombarded civilian centers from orbit, and the council called humanity's defense a violation. The fired first, Lisa said, her voice tight. They invaded our space. They murdered our people. They have filed a formal complaint, a delegate from the Vex species added. She was a tall, bird-like creature with silver feathers. They claim humanity used excessive force. The council agrees. Looked around the chamber. Some species avoided his eyes. Others stared back with open hostility. A few, like the gentle people in the upper rows, looked uncomfortable but stayed silent. Let me understand this correctly, said. Humanity defended itself against an unprovoked attack. We saved millions more lives by ending the threat completely, and now we must pay the attackers for surviving. You must pay the council, Al corrected. The resources will be distributed as the council sees fit. Additionally, humanity will accept council observers on all military vessels. Your fleet will be reduced by 60%. You will open your research facilities to council inspection teams, and you will pay for all of these measures yourselves. The chamber filled with clicking, chirping, and humming as various species voiced their approval. Notice the delegation in the back rows. They looked smug. These talks have been going on for half a year, said. Every session the demands increase. Every time we meet one requirement, you add 3 more. We have tried to negotiate in good faith. Good faith? Al's mandibles clacked with what might have been laughter. Humanity has been part of this council for only 5 years. You are a young species, aggressive, dangerous. You come from a death world where everything tries to kill you, and you bring that violence with you to the stars. The council must protect the galaxy from human aggression. We haven't started a single war, Lisa said, standing up. Every conflict we've been involved in, we were defending ourselves or helping others. They invaded us. The pirates were raiding medical ships until we stopped them. The blockade was starving the colonies until we broke it. You interfered in internal matters, another delegate said. The council had those situations under observation. Observation, said quietly. You were watching species die while you debated proper procedures. The council operates on principles of non-interference and proportional response, Al said. Humanity refuses to accept these principles. Therefore, humanity must be restricted. These are the terms. You have 1 standard week to accept them. If you refuse, the council will impose economic sanctions. Your colonies will be blockaded. Your ships will be barred from council space. You will be isolated until you comply. Looked at Lisa. She met his eyes and gave a small nod. They had discussed this possibility many times over the past months. They had hoped it wouldn't come to this. They had tried every diplomatic approach they knew. Stood up slowly. The chamber grew quiet. Even the translator systems seemed to pause, waiting. High Arbiter Al, delegates of the Galactic Council, said. His voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. Humanity came to the stars hopping to find friends. We found some, though many of you stayed silent when you should have spoken. We also found bullies and bureaucrats who care more about control than justice. You will not address this council with such disrespect, Al said, his voice rising. I'm not finished, continued. For 6 months we have sat in this chamber. We have listened to demands that grow more unreasonable with each passing day. We have tried to find compromise. We have offered alternatives. Every attempt at honest negotiation has been met with contempt. He picked up his data pad and the small Earth flag that sat on the human delegation's table. Lisa did the same. Humanity hereby withdraws from all Galactic Council agreements effective immediately, said. We will honor our existing treaties with individual species who wish to maintain relations, but we are done with this council. These talks are over. The chamber exploded. Delegates shouted, chirped, and roared. Some demanded be arrested. Others called for immediate military action. A few, very few, sat in silence. And Lisa walked toward the exit. Their small security detail, 4 humans in simple uniforms, fell in around them. The chamber doors were 50 meters away, kept his pace steady and calm. You cannot simply leave, Al called out. The council does not grant you permission to withdraw. Stopped and turned back. We're not asking for permission. You will regret this, Al said. His mandibles spread wide in a threat display. Your species will come crawling back within weeks, begging to accept our terms, and when you do, the price will be much higher. Maybe, said, or maybe you'll realize that respect cannot be demanded, it must be earned, and this council stopped earning it a long time ago. He turned and walked out. The doors closed behind the human delegation, cutting off the chaos inside. The corridor outside was quiet except for their footsteps on the metal floor. That went well, Lisa said with dark humor. It was always going to end this way, replied. They pushed us until we had to choose between dignity and compliance. They think we'll break, Lisa said. They think humans need the council more than the council needs humans. Thought about Earth, about the colonies, about the fleet waiting in human space. He thought about the resources humanity had, the determination that came from surviving on a world that constantly tried to kill you, and the friends they had made among species who valued honor over hierarchy. Then they're going to learn something important about humanity, said. We don't break, we adapt, and we remember. Behind them, the council was already voting on sanctions and blockades. They were planning their punishment for the upstart humans who dared to walk away. They were laughing at the idea that one species could stand against the entire galactic order. None of them understood what they had just done. None of them realized that by pushing humanity out, they had freed humanity to act without council restrictions. And none of them had bothered to ask why the most dangerous species in the galaxy had been trying so hard to follow the rules in the first place. They would learn, but by then it would be far too late. Admiral Cole stood in the command center deep below the Rocky Mountains. The vast room hummed with activity as hundreds of officers monitored screens showing every human ship, colony, and station in known space. Status report, said. Commander Helen Torres looked up from her console. All colony evacuations are 92% complete, sir. The last transports will depart within 6 hours. Casualties? None, sir. The council surveillance teams didn't even notice we were leaving until the colonies were already empty. Allowed himself a small smile. 2 weeks had passed since Harrison walked out of the council chamber. In those 2 weeks, humanity had moved faster than the council thought possible. Every civilian in every exposed colony had been relocated to safer systems. Every piece of vital equipment had been packed up and shipped away. The only things left behind were empty buildings and automated farming systems. They think we're running scared, Helen said. Let them think that, replied. What's the fleet status? All ships have returned to defensive positions. The outer colonies are covered. Earth has tripled the normal patrol strength. We're ready for whatever comes. Walked to the main display. It showed the entire region of space where humans lived. 200 years ago, humanity was confined to one planet. Now they had 60 colonies spread across 40 light years, and every single one was about to become a fortress. Sir, we're getting a transmission from the council, a communications officer called out. They're demanding we respond to their blockade announcement. Ignore it, said. We have nothing to say to them right now. On the far side of human space, Captain Greg Turner commanded the EDS Vigilance, a heavy cruiser that had seen action in the war. His crew was running another drill, the 5th one today. They had been drilling non-stop since the withdrawal. Time, Greg asked. Weapons hot in 4 seconds, sir, his tactical officer reported. All systems green. Again, Greg said. But this time, simulate a damaged power relay. I want to see how fast you can compensate." His crew groaned but got back to work. Greg knew he was pushing them hard. He also knew that when the Council finally moved against humanity, there would be no time for second chances. "Captain, we're receiving a priority message from Fleet Command," his communications officer said. "We're being reassigned. New coordinates incoming." Greg read the orders and felt his jaw tighten. The Vigilance and 15 other ships were being sent to Redemption's Edge, one of humanity's agricultural colonies. According to intelligence, a Council enforcement fleet was heading that way. "Set course," Greg said. "Best speed, and go to stealth mode as soon as we're clear of the system." Meanwhile, Director Sophie Martin sat in an office that officially didn't exist. She ran humanity's intelligence network, the organization responsible for keeping humans alive in a galaxy that saw them as dangerous children. Her screens displayed information from 1,000 sources: Council fleet movements, economic data, communications intercepts, private conversations between Council delegates, everything that could help humanity survive what was coming. "Director, we have confirmation," her assistant said. "The Council is planning a demonstration of force. They want to bomb one of our colonies to prove they're serious." "Which one?" "Redemption's Edge. They picked it because it's isolated and supposedly abandoned." Sophie made a note. "Get this information to Admiral Cole and Captain Turner immediately. What else?" "The blockade is having effects. 3 Council species are experiencing medical supply shortages. They are being hit the hardest. They're having a plague outbreak and they depend on human vaccines." Sophie thought for a moment. "Contact the through-back channels. Let them know we'll provide the vaccines they need. No payment required. Just send a ship to neutral space and we'll meet them there." "Director, the Council forbids any species from trading with us." "I know what the Council forbids," Sophie said. "Do it anyway. If they want to paint us as monsters, we'll show them what humanity really is." 3 days later, a small medical ship limped into neutral space. It was old and barely functional, probably the only ship that could risk sending. A human transport was waiting. The captain, an elderly female named, was shocked when human crew members helped load thousands of vaccine canisters onto her ship. She was even more shocked when the human captain refused payment. "But the Council said humans would demand tribute," said. "They said you would exploit our weakness." The human captain, a woman named Bates, smiled. "The Council says a lot of things. Most of them are lies. Tell your people the vaccines are a gift. Tell them humanity doesn't forget its friends." Returned home and told everyone what happened. The story spread. Other species started asking questions. If humans were so dangerous, why were they helping the... If humans were so aggressive, why hadn't they attacked anyone since the withdrawal? In the Council chamber, High Arbiter was growing frustrated. 2 weeks had become 3 weeks. 3 weeks had become a month, and humanity still hadn't come begging to be let back in. "They must be on the verge of collapse," Al told his advisors. "Their economy depends on Council trade routes." "Our intelligence suggests otherwise," one advisor said carefully. "Human colonies appear to be functioning normally. They've established new trade agreements with several independent species, and their military is more active than ever." "Impossible," Al said. "They're bluffing. Send enforcement fleets to their colonies. We'll seize their assets and they'll have no choice but to surrender." But when Council fleets arrived at human colonies, they found empty settlements. The buildings were intact. The power was still on. Automated systems were still maintaining the farms and factories, but there were no humans anywhere. "They evacuated," Admiral reported back to the Council. He commanded the enforcement fleet that had visited 5 human colonies. "They took everyone and left everything else behind." "Then destroy it," Al ordered. "Show them the price of defiance." "High Arbiter, these colonies produce food for dozens of species. If we destroy them, millions could starve. Then those species will blame the humans for abandoning their responsibilities," Al said. "Proceed with the demonstration." Prepared his fleet for the attack on Redemption's Edge. It was a perfect target, an isolated farming colony that grew crops for half the species in the region. Destroying it would hurt humanity's reputation and prove the Council's power. What didn't know was that Captain Greg Turner and the Vigilance were already there, hiding in the shadow of the planet's largest moon. 15 other human ships waited with him, all in stealth mode, all watching. And on the planet below, the automated farming systems weren't just farming. They were hiding something that the Council was about to discover the hard way. Back on Earth, Admiral Cole received the update about S fleet. He looked at the tactical display and made his decision. "Send the order to Captain Turner," said. "Weapons free. Defend the colony. But Helen, make sure every second of what happens next is recorded and broadcast to every species in the galaxy." "Sir." "The Council has been telling lies about us," said. "It's time we showed everyone the truth. They want to see what happens when you push humanity too far. Let's give them a demonstration they'll never forget." Helen nodded and sent the orders. Across human space, every ship, every station, every colony went to full alert. The Council thought they were about to teach humanity a lesson. They were right about one thing. Someone was about to learn something important. But it wasn't going to be humanity. Admiral watched Redemption's edge grow larger on his. The planet was beautiful, covered in golden fields that stretched across 3 continents. Those fields fed billions of beings across a dozen species. Soon they would be nothing but ash. "All ships battle formation," ordered. His fleet of 47 vessels spread out across orbit, cruisers, destroyers, and frigates from 6 different Council species. "Begin scanning the surface." His tactical officer studied the readings. "Sir, the colony appears abandoned as reported. However, the automated systems are still active. The fields are being maintained." "Of course they are," said. "The humans want to come back when they surrender. They think we won't dare destroy food supplies that so many depend on." "Sir, shouldn't we verify the colony is truly empty before proceeding?" Scales flushed with annoyance. "Are you questioning the High Arbiter's orders? This is a demonstration. We will show every species in the galaxy what happens when you defy the Council. Charge all weapons." Across his fleet, ships powered up their main guns. Energy readings spiked as capacitors filled, felt satisfaction flowing through him. Humanity had been a problem since they joined the Council. Too independent, too confident, too willing to question authority. This would remind them of their place. "Weapons charged and ready, Admiral." "Fire on my mark. Target the primary agricultural centers. I want those fields burning. 3, 2, 1. "Contact," his sensor officer screamed. "Multiple ships directly ahead." The flared as ships appeared out of nowhere. Not just 1 or 2, but 16 warships materializing between S fleet and the planet. Human warships, their weapons already hot and aimed directly at his vessels. The lead ship was massive, a heavy cruiser bristling with guns. Its hull was painted with the name Vigilance and the emblem of Earth Defense Forces. "This is Captain Greg Turner of the EDS Vigilance," a voice said over the open channel. "You are targeting a civilian agricultural facility that provides food for 80 million beings across 12 species. Stand down immediately." Recovered from his shock. "This is Admiral of the Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet. You are in violation of Council orders. Move aside or be destroyed." "This colony feeds your people too, Admiral," Greg said calmly. "Even some, you fire on these fields and you're not punishing humanity. You're starving innocent beings who never did anything to you." "The Council has authorized this action," said. "This is your final warning. Move aside." There was a pause, then Greg's voice came back, harder now. "I have a different warning for you, Admiral. The Council told you this colony was abandoned. They told you it would be an easy target. They lied. This colony is defended, and if you fire on it, we will consider it an act of war." Looked at his tactical display. 16 human ships against 47 Council vessels. The humans were outnumbered almost 3 to 1. "You cannot win this fight, Captain." "Maybe," Greg said, "but you won't survive it either, and every species in the galaxy is watching right now. So I'll ask you one more time, is destroying farmland worth starting a war?" His pride wouldn't let him back down. He had his orders, he had superior numbers, and he had the entire Council behind him. "All ships, open fire. Destroy the human vessels first, then proceed with planetary bombardment." His fleet opened up with everything they had. Energy beams and missiles filled the space between the two forces. The human ships scattered, their engines pushing them into evasive patterns that had never seen before. But the humans weren't just dodging, they were shooting back. The Vigilance rolled to avoid a barrage of missiles, then fired its main guns. 3 Council frigates exploded in sequence, their shields overloaded in seconds. Other human ships worked in pairs, coordinating their fire with brutal efficiency. Damage reports coming in from multiple ships, communications officer said. The humans are targeting our weapons systems and engines. They're trying to disable us, not destroy us. They're showing mercy, said with disgust. Continue firing, show them no such weakness. But then something else happened. On the planet below, the automated farming system stopped farming. Across 3 continents, thousands of innocent-looking maintenance units transformed. Panels slid open, revealing missile batteries. Sensor arrays deployed from grain silos. What looked like irrigation equipment rotated to reveal point defense systems. The entire planet was a hidden fortress. Incoming fire from the surface, his tactical officer screamed. Thousands of missiles launching. Watched in horror as his fleet was suddenly caught between the human ships above and the automated defenses below. His vessels tried to defend themselves, but they were surrounded and a Council destroyer took a direct hit and split in half. A cruiser lost all power and went dark. Frigates were being picked apart by precise fire that targeted their weapons and engines, leaving them helpless but intact. Sir, we've lost 19 ships, his officer reported. 23 more are disabled. We can't maintain this fight. Had faced pirates and raiders before. He had intimidated smaller species into compliance, but he had never faced an enemy that fought like this. The humans weren't trying to kill everyone. They were surgically dismantling his fleet, taking apart his ships piece by piece. All ships retreat, ordered, fall back to jump distance. His remaining vessels tried to break away. The human ships let them go, but the planet's defenses kept firing until every Council ship was either destroyed, disabled, or running. In 18 minutes it was over. 47 ships had attacked, 8 were destroyed, 29 were disabled and drifting. 10, including flagship, limped away with heavy damage. Attention Council Fleet, Greg Turner's voice came over the channel again. We're sending rescue teams to recover survivors from the disabled ships. Anyone who needs medical attention will receive it. This didn't have to happen. Said nothing, his pride was shattered along with his fleet. He had failed completely. Admiral, his communications officer said quietly. Sir, that entire battle was broadcast. The humans sent the footage to every major news network in Council space. Everyone saw everything. Closed his eyes. The Council had wanted a demonstration. They got one, but it didn't show what they had hoped. On Earth, director Sophie Martin smiled as she watched the footage spread across the galaxy. Every species with a communication system was seeing the battle, but more importantly, they were seeing the context. Sophie had released all of it. The Council's demands, the threats, the blockades, the decision to bomb a civilian facility that fed millions, and then humanity's measured response, fighting only to defend and offering mercy to defeated enemies. How are the other species reacting? Sophie asked her assistant. Mixed, but shifting in our favor. They have issued a public statement thanking humanity for protecting the food supplies they depend on. They are questioning why the Council would destroy crops that feed their people. Even some Council species are asking their representatives why this attack was authorized. And the doubling down, they're claiming the battle was faked, that humanity somehow manipulated the footage. Sophie nodded. Let them claim that. Anyone with basic sensor analysis can verify the footage is real. The more they lie, the more species will question them. She pulled up a new document on her screen. It was a compilation of every broken Council promise, every ignored plea for help, every time the Council had stood by while innocents suffered. Years of documentation that humanity had been quietly collecting. Release this to the public networks, Sophie said. All of it. Every species deserves to know the truth about who they're really following. In the Council chamber, High Arbiter watched the same footage everyone else was seeing. His mandibles clacked with rage. This is a disaster, one of his advisors said. 3 species have already contacted us demanding an explanation. They are threatening to withdraw from the Council entirely. The humans manipulated this situation, Al said. They wanted this fight. They baited us into attacking so they could play the victims. High Arbiter, the footage clearly shows Admiral firing first. I don't care what the footage shows, Al roared. The humans are making us look weak. They're turning our own members against us. We need to respond with overwhelming force. Assemble the full council military. We will crush Earth itself and end this rebellion. His advisors looked at each other nervously. None of them wanted to point out that humanity had just destroyed a council fleet in minutes. None of them wanted to ask what would happen if Earth was actually defended. But they all thought it. And across the galaxy, billions of beings were thinking the same thing. Maybe the council had made a terrible mistake. Maybe humanity had been trying to work within the system. And maybe, by pushing them out and attacking them, the council had created an enemy that couldn't be controlled. The OV was in crisis. Delegate Mers stood in her government's emergency council chamber, watching the medical reports scroll across the screens. The plague that had started 3 months ago was spreading again, and the vaccines that humanity had provided were running out. "We need more supplies," the medical director said. "Without them, we'll lose thousands by next week." "The council has forbidden all contact with humanity," another official reminded them. "If we request aid again, we could face sanctions." Mers' feathers ruffled with anger. "The council ordered the attack on Redemption's Edge, a facility that feeds our people. The council tried to destroy farmland while claiming to protect us. And now the council forbids us from receiving medicine that saves our children. When did we agree to follow orders that kill us?" The room fell silent. Mers had been a loyal council delegate for 20 years. Hearing her speak this way was shocking. "We could send a secret message to the humans," the medical director suggested. "They helped us before. Maybe they would help again." "No more secrets," Mers said firmly. "If we're going to ask humanity for help, we do it publicly. Let the council try to stop us. Let them explain to our people why we should let our children die to satisfy their pride." She sent the message herself, broadcasting it on open channels where everyone could hear. Within an hour, Ambassador Harrison responded. He was in a small office somewhere on Earth, looking tired but determined. "Delegate Mers' humanity remembers its friends," said. "We're sending 3 medical ships with enough vaccines for your entire population. They'll arrive in 2 days. No payment required, no conditions attached." "The council will retaliate," Mers warned. "Let them try," said. "We're done letting bullies decide who lives and dies." The conversation was broadcast across council space. Billions watched as humanity, supposedly the aggressive and dangerous species, offered free medical aid to anyone who needed it. And billions watched as the council scrambled to respond. High Arbiter called an emergency session. "The humans are trying to buy loyalty," he announced to the assembled delegates. "They offer aid now, but they will demand payment later. This is how they operate. They manipulate and deceive." "They saved my people's crops," a delegate said quietly, "when your fleet tried to burn them." "They provided vaccines when my people were dying," Mers added, "while the council did nothing." "The council was negotiating for proper aid distribution," Al said. "These things take time." "Our children don't have time," Mers said. She stood up, her silver feathers catching the light. "I am formally announcing that is withdrawing from Galactic Council military agreements. We will maintain diplomatic relations, but we will no longer support Council military actions, and we will accept aid from any species that offers it, including humanity." 3 other delegates stood up immediately. "The Union joins this position." "The Collective as well." "The Confederacy stands with." Al watched in horror as his council began to fracture. "You are all making a mistake. The humans are manipulating you. They want to destroy the council and take control themselves." "Have they asked for control?" Mers challenged. "Have they demanded anything in return for their help? All they did was walk away when you treated them poorly. You're the one who attacked them. You're the one who tried to starve populations to prove a point." Harrison watched the council session from his office on Earth. Lisa sat beside him, both of them tracking the growing crisis across council space. 12 species have now formally withdrawn from council military agreements," Lisa said. 19 more are considering it. Al is losing control. "He's going to do something desperate," predicted. "Bullies always do when they're losing." He was right. Within a day, Al announced that any species accepting aid from humanity would face immediate sanctions. Council ships began positioning themselves to blockade worlds that had sided with the. That's when Admiral Cole made his move. "All fleet elements, this is Cole," he broadcast to every human ship. "Any council vessel that attempts to blockade our allies will be treated as hostile. Any attack on species under our protection will be considered an act of war. We're not looking for a fight, but we won't stand by while the Council starves people for political points. Human warships began arriving at space, at stations, at colonies. They didn't threaten anyone. They just positioned themselves between Council enforcers and the species they were supposed to be protecting. Director Sophie Martin had been busy too. She released another document, this one showing the Council's financial records. Years of corruption laid bare for everyone to see. Council leadership had been stealing resources meant for mutual defense, enriching themselves while telling member species there wasn't enough to go around. The document showed how the Council had embezzled funds meant for plague response, for disaster relief, for infrastructure development. They had kept dozens of species dependent and weak while claiming they were providing protection. "How did you get this?" asked when Sophie showed him the data. "We've been collecting it for years," Sophie said. "Every time a Council member accessed their secret accounts through networks we monitor, we recorded it. Every bribe, every theft, every lie. I was saving it for when we needed it most." "This will destroy them." "Good," Sophie said coldly. "They've been destroying species for decades. Time someone returned the favor." The revelations hit Council space like a bomb. Species that had been loyal for centuries suddenly questioned everything. How much of their poverty was real? How much was manufactured to keep them controlled? How many times had the Council lied to them? Protests erupted on Council worlds. Representatives were recalled. Governments collapsed. And more species reached out to humanity, not asking for membership in anything, just asking for honest trade and mutual respect. Found himself in constant meetings with species who wanted to know what humanity planned to do. They expected humans to take over, to replace the Council with a human-led order. They were surprised by what told them. "We're not trying to build an empire," explained to a group of ambassadors from 7 different species. "We just want to trade fairly and defend ourselves when necessary. If you want a new galactic organization, you should build it yourselves. We'll participate if the terms are reasonable, but we're not going to rule anyone." "Then what do you want?" one ambassador asked, confused. "We want what we always wanted," said. "To be treated with respect, to have our voices heard, to help species that need it and be helped when we need it. We want a galaxy where might doesn't make right, where smaller species aren't bullied, and where everyone has a seat at the table." "That's what the Council claimed to be," another ambassador said bitterly. "Then let's build something better," said. "No central authority that can be corrupted. Instead, a network of bilateral agreements. Species choose which treaties to join. Everything is voluntary, and if an organization stops serving its members, they can leave without being punished for it." The ambassadors looked at each other. It was a radical idea. It meant giving up the security of a central power, but that central power had failed them. Maybe it was time to try something new. Meanwhile, Al was gathering his remaining loyalists. About 30 species still supported the Council, mostly those whose governments had benefited from the corruption or who feared change more than oppression. "We will not let the humans destroy what we have built," Al told his war council. "I am ordering a full military mobilization, every ship, every weapon, every resource. We will gather the largest fleet this galaxy has ever seen, and we will burn Earth to ash. When humanity is gone, the other species will remember why they need the Council." His advisors looked uncomfortable, but none dared to argue. The orders went out. 300 warships began gathering in Council space, preparing for the final assault on humanity. But Admiral Cole was ready. He had been planning for this since the day walked out of the Council chamber. And he had allies now. Real allies who fought beside humanity because they chose to, not because they were forced to. "Sir, we're detecting the Council fleet assembling," Commander Helen Torres reported. "Estimated strength is 300 vessels." "And our strength?" asked. 200 human ships, plus another 600 from allied species who have volunteered to help defend Earth. Smiled, the Council thought they were bringing overwhelming force. They thought numbers alone would win. They had no idea what they were about to face. "Send a message to all allied ships," said. "Thank them for their courage and tell them we're not going to Earth." "Sir." "We're going to the Council home system," said. "They want to attack our families. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten the people we love. But Helen, make absolutely sure every captain understands. We're not there to conquer. We're there to end this once and for all." High Arbiter stood in his command ship at the head of the largest military fleet ever assembled in Council history. 300 warships from 30 loyal species surrounded him, their weapons charged and ready. Ahead lay the jump point to Earth's solar system. "All ships report ready, High Arbiter," his fleet coordinator announced. "We await your command." Al felt triumph flowing through him. Humanity had embarrassed him, turned his council members against him, and exposed secrets that should have stayed hidden. But now he would have his revenge. Earth would burn, and every species would remember why they needed the Council's iron rule. "Begin the jump," Al ordered. "Today we end the human problem forever." The fleet engaged their faster-than-light drives. Space twisted around them as they prepared to emerge in Earth's system. Al imagined the looks on human faces when they saw this armada appearing in their sky. But when the jump completed and space snapped back to normal, Al's triumph died instantly. They weren't looking at Earth. They were looking at the Council of R, Al's own planet, and between his fleet and his home was the largest gathering of ships he had ever seen. 800 vessels filled the space around R. 200 carried the emblem of Earth Defense Forces, but the rest came from dozens of different species. Medical ships flying beside cruisers, destroyers in formation with carriers. Even some species that had supposedly stayed neutral had sent ships. At the center of this massive fleet sat the EDS Vigilance. Captain Greg Turner's voice came over every communication channel, broadcasting to both fleets and the planet below. "High Arbiter Al, this is Captain Turner. You came here planning to attack Earth and everyone who lives there. Families, children, civilians who never did anything except exist. We decided to show you what it feels like to have that threat hanging over your home." Al's mandibles clacked with rage. "You dare threaten the Council, this is an act of war." "No," Admiral Cole's voice joined the broadcast. "This is a demonstration. You've been using fear and force to control species for decades. Now you're afraid, and you're learning what it's like to be on the receiving end." "You're surrounded," Greg added. "You have 300 ships. We have 800 and more are arriving every hour. Your weapons are outdated. Your tactics are predictable. And most importantly, your crews are already questioning whether they want to die for your pride." On Al's command ship, officers exchanged nervous glances. They had signed up to intimidate a single species. They hadn't expected to face a united fleet or to have their own world used as leverage. "This is your last chance," said his voice calm but firm. "Stand down, end this conflict, or we show you exactly what humanity is capable of when we stop trying to play by your rules." "You won't fire," Al said, trying to sound confident. "You won't dare attack a civilian world. You claim to be better than us." There was a pause, then Greg spoke again and his voice was cold as ice. "You're right. We won't fire on your world, but we don't have to. Look at your sensors, High Arbiter, really look." Al's tactical officer brought up detailed scans of the human fleet. What he saw made his blood run cold. Every human ship was recording everything. Every weapon system, every defensive position, every communication from Al's fleet was being analyzed and cataloged. "We know everything about your fleet now," said. "Every weakness, every flaw, every outdated system. If you fight us here, we'll dismantle you just like we did at Redemption's Edge. The difference is, this time there are no farms to protect. No civilians between us, just your ships and ours." "But that's not the real threat." Sophie Martin's voice joined the broadcast. She was broadcasting from Earth, her image appearing on every screen. "The real threat is that everyone is watching. Every species in the galaxy is seeing this moment. They're watching the Council's great fleet facing a coalition they claimed was impossible. They're wondering why so many species chose to stand with humanity instead of with you." She was right. The broadcast was going everywhere. Billions of beings watched as the Council's military might proved hollow, as species they had controlled for decades stood united against them. "Here's what happens next," Harrison said, his voice joining the others. "You can fight. You'll lose, your ships will be destroyed, and the Council will be finished through military defeat. Or you can stand down, return home, and face political defeat as your own people demand answers about why you led them into this disaster. Either way, the Council as you know it ends today." Al looked at his fleet. Then he looked at the 800 ships facing him. Then he looked at his below, where billions of his people were watching and waiting to see if their leader would sacrifice them for his ego. On one of Al's escort ships, a junior officer named in made a decision. He had lost friends at Redemption's Edge. He had watched the corruption documents that humanity released. He had seen enough. "I will not fire on species who have done nothing wrong," In announced to his crew. "I will not destroy other ships to protect leaders who stole from us. This vessel is standing down." His captain tried to stop him, but the rest of the crew supported in. The ship powered down its weapons and broadcast a message of surrender. One ship became two, two became five, five became 20. Across Al's fleet, crews were mutinying, refusing to fight in a war they didn't believe in. "All ships return fire," Al screamed. "That's an order." But no one was listening anymore. Even his own command crew was backing away from their stations. His second-in-command removed her weapon and set it aside. "It's over, High Arbiter," she said quietly. "We lost, not because humanity beat us in battle, but because they showed everyone what we really were." Al looked around his bridge. Every screen showed ships powering down, crews abandoning their posts, species broadcasting messages of surrender. His grand fleet was collapsing without a single shot being fired. "The Council recognizes Al's fleet has surrendered," Cole announced. "All vessels are ordered to return to their home systems. Any crews who wish to file charges against their leadership for corruption will be provided with evidence and support. This conflict is over." On R below, Al's own government was already moving. He received a message from the Planetary Council. He was being removed from power, effective immediately. Charges of corruption, abuse of authority, and endangering the would follow. 3 months later, Harrison stood in a new chamber. It wasn't as grand as the old council chamber. It was smaller, simpler, built on neutral ground in a space station that didn't belong to any single species. Around him sat representatives from 47 species. Not delegates with supreme authority, just ambassadors empowered to negotiate specific agreements. There was no high arbiter, no central authority that could demand obedience. "The trade agreement between Earth and is announced. Any other species wishing to join this agreement can submit a request. Any species currently in the agreement can leave at any time." It was a slow process, building this new network of cooperation. Each agreement was negotiated separately. Each species chose which treaties to join based on their own interests. There were arguments, disagreements, and complications. But there was also something that had been missing from the old council. There was respect, there was choice, and there was the understanding that any species could walk away if they were treated poorly. Delegate Mers approached during a break. "Do you think this will work?" she asked. "No central authority means no one to enforce agreements." "The old council had central authority," said. "It didn't stop them from being corrupt. This system depends on trust instead of force. Species honor agreements because it's in their interest, not because they're afraid. And if someone breaks an agreement, then others stop working with them," said simply. "Reputation matters, trust matters. The old council thought power mattered most. We're trying something different." Captain Greg Turner was assigned as the commander of a volunteer peacekeeping force. Ships from 19 species worked together, protecting smaller civilizations from pirates and raiders. They didn't enforce council laws because there was no council. They just responded when someone asked for help. It wasn't perfect. Some species refused to participate, still bitter about the old council's fall. They retreated to their own space, watching humanity nervously. A few tried to restart the council, but they found no support. Admiral Cole stood down from active command, satisfied that Earth was secure. He gave a final address to the fleet before retiring. "We didn't set out to destroy the council," said. "We just wanted to be treated fairly. When that failed, we walked away. When they attacked us for leaving, we defended ourselves. And when we won, we didn't try to replace them. We offered something better. A galaxy where every species has a voice, where cooperation is voluntary, and where respect is earned, not demanded. Some will say we were lucky," continued. "That we survived through chance, but it wasn't luck. It was preparation, strategy, and the willingness to stand up for our principles even when it was hard. And it was understanding that true strength isn't about defeating enemies. It's about making the choice to fight or show mercy and having the wisdom to know which one fits the situation." Director Sophie Martin finally revealed herself publicly, no longer hiding behind layers of intelligence operations. She established a transparency organization that monitored agreements and published violations. Anyone could access the data. Anyone could verify that treaties were being honored. "Information is power," Sophie said in her first public interview. The old council controlled information to control species. We're doing the opposite. Everyone gets to see everything. Let truth be the foundation instead of secrets. Ambassador Lisa returned to Earth after years in space. She found a world transformed. Humans who had feared isolation discovered they were more connected than ever. Trade flourished, cultural exchanges, and Earth became a hub for species seeking honest dealing and fair treatment. Harrison sat in his small office, much quieter now that the crisis had passed. He was reviewing trade proposals when Mers contacted him. The Compact wants to join the agricultural cooperative, she said. They're a small species, only 5 billion people, but they have expertise in soil restoration. Send them the terms, said. If they agree, they're in, simple as that. It's strange, Mers said. Everything is so easy now, no need to get approval from 12 committees. No bribes, no politics, just honest negotiation. That's what we were trying to tell the council all along, said. Cooperation works better when it's voluntary. After the call ended, looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, species were building new relationships based on choice rather than force. The galaxy hadn't become perfect. There were still conflicts, still disagreements, still problems to solve. But something fundamental had changed. One species had shown everyone that you didn't have to accept a broken system. You could walk away, you could defend yourself, and you could offer something better. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy. They had simply refused to be conquered, and in doing so, they had freed everyone else to make the same choice. Smiled and returned to his work. There were trade agreements to review, disputes to mediate, and relationships to build. The galaxy was a big place, full of species trying to find their way. And for the first time in decades, they were finding it together as equals.